welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. I'm Noah Strackbein, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. And today, the Steelers free agency is about to get started. We are 2-3 weeks away from the beginning of 2023, the official start of the league year. And on top of that, the Steelers have replaced Brian Flores, or at least plan to replace Brian Flores with an interesting name, to say the least, but I think one that has some promise to it. But as always, it's cold outside. It was beautiful yesterday. It was so nice outside yesterday that I convinced myself midday to go buy a new golf club just so that I could go golfing. It was I was actually at the Pittsburgh Tattoo Expo, and I was like, all right, do I want to waste money on a tattoo, or do I want to go outside? So I was like, I'm going to waste money on a golf club. And it was definitely worth it until some dude in a sleeveless shirt, it was not warm enough for a sleeveless shirt, decided that he was going to come to the driving range and go, I'm a lefty. So like out of pure respect, you are a lefty. What you do is you take the last bail, like the last row, because you're swinging the opposite way of everybody. That the last one was set up to a righty. The one next to that was set up as a lefty. There were a dozen open spots at this driving range. I was there for an hour, swinging away, having a good time. Nobody was bothering me. This guy in a sleeveless shirt decided to come up right behind me as a righty and just act like it was cool. Like we weren't going to smack clubs every time we swung. So I just hit all the last remaining ones of my balls. I had like half of a bail left. And I was like, all right, I'm leaving. And I gave him a dirty look. I was like, you have no golf manners. But, besides that, it's been a good weekend. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. Things are heating up. We're going to the combine in a couple weeks too. That's
1 week today. Yeah. We're at the combine.
Yeah. It's exciting. So, stuff's getting real now. And next season is almost here, it feels like, which is weird.
Yeah, it is. I was actually just talking about that the other day. Like we have 1 week and then it's like kind of slow for 10 days or something. Then free agency starts, and next thing you know, offseason workouts begin like April 17th or something. Like it's people talk about the offseason and they're just like, oh yeah, you're so excited. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be it's a fun 3 weeks. It's a good,
right.
it's a really enjoyable half of February, let me tell you. But I'm excited to go watch some football again. Did you catch any of the XFL yesterday?
I did not. I did see though I did see clips of former Pitt Panther Ben DiNucci lighting it up. Yeah. So yeah. that was pretty exciting. But no, I was watching the NBA All-Star game instead.
Oh, true, the NBA. Yeah, I was watching that too. Not the All-Star game, just the dunk contest, 3-point contest. I'm not an All-Star game kind of guy, but I did catch some XFL. I didn't see DiNucci. I did watch Hines Ward's game. That was, until the last 2 minutes, the most boring game in the existence of football. It's crazy. I think the bigger headline, though, like besides Hines Ward's team falling, losing by 3 points or something, they gave up 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes. Don't even think that's possible. And the biggest headline coming out of the Steelers in the XFL is that Paxton Lynch, now I'm just getting this off of a TikTok, so I don't know if it's true or not, became the first quarterback ever to get benched in the NFL, the CFL, the USFL, and the XFL.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's quite a feat. That's
good for him. Good for him. Going down in history. That guy, former first-round pick.
That's wild to me. There were some bad quarterback drafts like back from when I was in like middle school and high school that we don't really talk about anymore, just because there's a new generation now. But man, they were the bridging the gap from like Brady and Peyton Manning and like Drew Brees and everyone to get to like this iteration of like Mahomes and Josh Allen and everyone else, like and Burrow and whoever the hell else. It was tough sledding at certain points. It was not. It was not a direct hand to the torch. It took a while to find that next generation of guys.
Yeah, It was rough. My dad's I mentioned that all the time. My dad's a Broncos fan. That I remember that. He was so hyped. He was like, this dude's huge and he's a monster. I was like, all right, man. I was writing, I had my own little like personal blog. It was called Average Joe Sports. And I graded everybody's first round pick, all 32 teams, and Denver Broncos got a straight F. And he's gonna be pissed about this one, but it's the truth. And here we are. But Paxton Lynch, former Pittsburgh Steeler, hopefully he gets back out there and gets a chance to redeem himself there in the XFL. Another former first round pick is now in Pittsburgh. Aaron Curry is reportedly expected to be hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers as their new linebacker coach, replacing Brian Flores, the former 4th overall pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Didn't play long, like 5 years in the NFL. Never really stuck. I believe he did play the Steelers in the Super Bowl, though. So does have a little bit of history. Spent some time coaching at the University of Charlotte, home of Alex Highsmith, and left there in 2018, I believe, headed to Seattle as just like a coaching assistant, has worked his way up a little bit. Now he's in Pittsburgh as the inside linebackers coach. Good move, bad move, boring move. What are your thoughts on it?
I think risky move is how I would define it. There's just not a ton of history to this guy's, coaching career. That's not to say he will be a bad coach definitively, but it feels somewhat un-Mike Tomlin like. It feels, I don't know, just walking into like going from Brian Flores, a guy with a wealth of experience. He was a head coach before. You downgraded a little bit, and you were going to downgrade pretty much no matter who you hired. But this is a guy with 4 years or not even 4 years, I believe 3 or 4 years of NFL coaching experience, period. Never as a position coach. The bulk of his experience was built in college, and that was not a particularly long stay at Charlotte either. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. There's, he was obviously a talented guy. I think it'll be interesting to see if they, what they do with Devin Bush, because this is a guy who I feel like has kind of a similar experience, former first round pick who just didn't work out.
Do you think they keep Devin Bush? Is that what you mean by that?
No, but I mean, I don't, but like, I don't know. There's something there, right? Like there's a common experience there. I think I feels more likely now that they brought this guy in. I don't think they brought a guy in just to coach up Devin Bush. That doesn't.
No. But I see the connection. I see where you're going there.
Right, but like but in the same vein, you wonder if they're thinking, okay, we're gonna have to bring in a young linebacker at some point during this draft. We need someone who, maybe you could try to bring in a young former, top tier linebacker to coach him through, say, hey, this is what I did wrong. This is how my NFL experience didn't pan out. Here's what you need to do to kind of make it at that next level. But I don't know. I'm a little unsure about this, and I guess it's just a kind of wait and see thing for me, because this feels, I don't know. It feels weird. I feel like they went early on this. Like they didn't wait around to find a more experienced candidate, so they see something in this guy that I haven't seen.
Yeah, I agree. I was shocked that it happened now. That's what got me. As I was like, why in February? Why in February for a guy that doesn't have a name? Yeah.
That you probably could have gotten later in the process after trying some.
Yeah, middle of June, March, April. Like you could have got him. You could have got him the day of the draft. You could have signed. It wasn't like he was a free agent either. Like the guy was signed to the Seattle Seahawks and is now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. Like maybe it does have upside. It fits their bill of, we want young developmental coaches who we could, grow into these good coaches without the risk of leaving us every season. Boring, but that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers like. But it just like it's even more underwhelming than what they usually do. Like at least Matt Canada had some experience. There was flashes of good. He had a relationship with Mike Tomlin. He had the relationship with the Steelers, being a part of Pitt. Like you saw the connection there. Aaron Curry, you're just like, okay, this guy never made it in the NFL, did nothing with Seattle. And like, I don't know, with Seattle's defense, like, they're good. Were they that good? And, like, did he play a big enough role where you're like, okay, this guy's got to come coach our inside linebackers? And on top of that, how much is he going to connect with a guy like Miles Jack? Like, can you bring a rookie linebackers coach in there and say, hey, veterans, listen to this guy, because he's going to teach you a lot of what he wasn't able to do in the NFL. And I get that, on the other side of that, a lot of those guys that don't make it in the NFL that should have made it in the NFL usually have the brains to be a good coach. And maybe Aaron Curry has shown people, and there is buzz around the league of, oh, okay, this guy does have star coach potential. He's just new. But I don't know. Like, he's been in the coaching game since 2014? That's 9 years of coaching to just now get your first positional coaching job. Just underwhelming. I would say very, very underwhelming.
Yeah, and it's possible, Pete Carroll saw something in him. And, Pete Carroll, I don't think is a bad coach.
No.
I think that's certainly a feather in his cap. But yeah, I don't know. This is an important position for the Steelers, especially at this moment in their history, and it just feels like a weird hire to make it this time.
Yeah, it very much so does. I don't think it moves the needle at all. I will say this, that if they're going that boring on defense, I think that they might make a little bit of a splash on offense, because I think that's what needed to happen. Is you needed to see the Steelers hire a replacement for Brian Flores just to show that they're serious about that position. Because Brian Flores is a one in a million shot. Shouldn't have got Brian Flores. There's no question there. That ruined the Steelers' expectations, or Steelers fans' expectations for this whole thing, because you land Brian Flores year one of this position, you're looking at it going, well, every year we should have the best coach on the market we should go hire to be a position coach. That's not what you do. It was just the NFL tried to shun Brian Flores, and Mike Tomlin went, well, that's really dumb, and hired him. That won't happen again. But you needed to see that they liked what they saw out of that position, and they saw the benefits of having that extra set of eyes and hands on the coaching staff. Whereas I think that they could do that and make a lesser hire on defense, which is what they did, because they do have a lot of trust in Terrell Austin. But I think it kind of pushes the needle to say, hey, they're also going to do it on offense. And that's when I think things could get interesting with a guy like Byron Leftwich or Pep Hamilton, or, one of those bigger names without a coaching offer that has OC experience to kind of come in here and, be that same role.
So you think, so it can't be an offensive coordinator, right? But it's got to be a position coach or something.
I would imagine it's like an assistant, like a senior offensive assistant, like Flores was. And then, like, I don't know, I guess they would kind of tackle a position. I would imagine it's like a coaching, like a quarterback assistant at the same time, but they already have two quarterback coaches. So that would get difficult. I don't know where he fits into the grand scheme of coaching a position, but at the same time, that's how I guess it was. I guess it was Keith Butler was the inside linebackers coach / defensive coordinator, but it wasn't. He was just the defensive coordinator. It wasn't really a linebackers coach. It was Jerry O. So now you have to look at it and say, like, okay, is this, can you bring in another quarterbacks coach and feel good about it and kind of just be that second hand to Mike Sullivan, or I don't know, maybe a running backs coach or a wide receivers coach? Both of those guys, I think Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich are the top of that list. If I had to pick one of them that ends up in Pittsburgh, it would be those two, or anybody on the market. I would pick those two, because I don't think either of them are going to get a coaching offer, or like an offensive coaching offer or offensive coordinator offer. And I think both of them want to stay in the NFL. They don't want to take a year off, especially Hamilton. Hamilton's a guy that he's already been around the league. Like, this guy is not young. He's not somebody that you could bring in here and just say, okay, revive your career with a year off. No, he takes a year off. Chances are it's just going to go downhill. So you stay in Pittsburgh, or you come to Pittsburgh, you could change that and keep that course of action moving in the right direction. Byron Leftwich might be the other hand of that, but at the same time, do you want to take a risk of people kind of losing steam around this guy, or do you come to Pittsburgh? The problem is both of those guys are quarterback coaches. So maybe you kind of like just bump Mike Sully to the side and say, you two are now working together. I don't know. I don't know how that works specifically, but I would still say those two are the top of the list. Breaking news. Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard and look. Now, you could finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match the carpet by going to manscaped.com and using our code Steelers20 for 20% off and free shipping. Everybody knows on this show that I have the beard. I will never show up without a beard unless it's a mustache. Manscaped coming out with beard products was huge for me, and I am so excited to tell you guys about it. It's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped's Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut for fixing faces. First off, its cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths all in one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. That's right, face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower to avoid all that hair in the sink. The titanium-coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Pro Kit doesn't end there, though. They have created the dermatologist-tested formulations for the best post-trim care. First, there is the beard shampoo and conditioner. You need to remember all your hair is different. Your beard hair is more coarse and easier to damage than the hair on your head. That's why this kit has made shampoo and conditioner specifically designed to moisturize reduced ingrown hairs and replace natural oils to promote beard health. Next, the kit has Manscaped's beard oil, an essential piece to your main facial accessory. No one wants a guy whose beard is brittle and dry. The oil relieves dryness both on the beard and the skin beneath while adding a little shimmer and shine to make you look extra fine. Cap off the kit with a beard balm, a pomade that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look to attract any fellas or dames. The Pro Beard Kit also comes with 3 free gifts, a beard brush, a comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is ready to impress. I've already used all of them. They are all amazing. Best beard kit I've ever owned. So get 20% off and free shipping with our code Steelers20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And all you have to do is use our code Steelers20. Manscaped, Beard Hedger, one stroke, one guard, 20. All right, let's talk free agents. Steelers have what? Terrell Edmonds, DeMonte KZ, Larry Ogunjobi, Devin Bush, I guess, Robert Spillane. That's pretty much all the big ones. That's the ones that you expect Cam Sutton to return this offseason. That's the list that you look at and say, those guys are most likely coming back. Maybe not Devin Bush, but the rest of them, I think the expectation is a return to Pittsburgh. The question is when and how much are you willing to offer to these guys right away? Or if you're the Steelers, are you waiting to wait a little while and say, we'll see how the market plays out, much like they did Terrell Edmonds last season. They got DeMonte KZ super late. They got DeMonte KZ on the 3rd day of the draft. I remember coming home. It was 11 o'clock at night. I was eating Kevin Colbert's retirement cake in my bed with a glass of champagne because Jillian had a bottle of champagne like, oh, you did it. Because the NFL draft is exhausting. It's 3 days where you sleep like 3 hours. On top of that, Jordan Addison left like in the middle of it. It was the wildest 3 days of the year. That 3rd day, I come home. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm eating the cake. I'm enjoying. We were watching a movie. And then all of a sudden, I look at my phone, and it's like the Pittsburgh Steelers have signed DeMonte KZ. Super, super late in the offseason. Larry Ogunjobi's the same deal, but he had an offer for Chicago, failed a physical. That's kind of how he ended up in Pittsburgh. This year, I think things changed. Terrell Edmonds' market's probably higher. KZ's market's probably higher. Larry Ogunjobi's might be a little bit of a question mark, and same with Robert Spillane. So I want to go through them and decide who you sign first, who you wait on, and how comfortable you are to take the risk that they might sign elsewhere. We'll start with Cam Sutton. I think that's the most obvious choice here. You look at Cam Sutton, are you even letting him hit the free agency market? And if so, is he still the top of your list no matter what?
I think he absolutely is, and I don't think you let him hit the free agent market if you can avoid it. We've talked about this before, but this is a dire position of need. He's a great fit for what they do. He's not going to be like as expensive as some of the other corners that we've talked about on this show. You need him. You need his value, not just in terms of like what he brings to the field, but the fact that he can do what he does on the field for a relative discount compared to like his peers in this league.
Yeah.
He had a great season and he's earned your trust and another contract.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I was shocked that they let his contract expire, but I think that kind of went both ways. I think that maybe something was like, I'm going to let this expire because $2.1 million is a good chunk of change.
Mm-hmm.
So the Steelers took a dead hit. I do think that they sign him before the market opens. I think the market opens like March 17th or something, March 14th, something like that. I would be very shocked if they let him hit the market. At the same time, I think if you do let him hit the market, you're taking a huge risk because if you're the Steelers, you're going to have teams like the Vikings, I've heard. The Detroit Lions are another team that's been floated out to me. One of them's going to make an offer. And if one of them makes a crazy offer and you're Cam Sutton, you got to be sitting around going, look, at the Steelers have a good team. They have a great coaching staff. I'm very familiar with them. But at the same time, the Detroit Lions almost made the playoffs last year. The Minnesota Vikings did make the playoffs last year, were one of the favorites for the Super Bowl, and they have Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator, so I know the coach in the building. You offer him a big contract, I think the Steelers lose him. So, yeah, I agree. I think that is the name that you prioritize first and you sign before the market opens, even if you got to give him a little bit of a pay bump. Second, Terrell Edmunds, safety. His market value right now is, according to Spotrac, or what do you call it? Spot Rack.
I don't know.
2 years, $10.9 million, $5.4 million a season. Ranks him the 27th highest paid safety in the NFL. I think that suits him pretty well. He's coming off of a $2.5 million deal this past season, so he gets a $3 million pay bump every year. Do you let him hit the market? Do you let him test the market and see what the waters are? Do you possibly negotiate him and KZ at the same time and see what one you could get at a bigger discount? How do you handle that situation?
I'd be more willing to let Edmunds hit the market. $5 million seems not that much higher than what you'd want to pay for him. But still a little bit higher than you'd want to pay for, a little bit more than you want to pay for him. I think the fact that you have KZ as a safety valve in this situation makes me more comfortable with letting Edmunds see what he has, see what other teams come back with. Because I'm not totally convinced that other teams would pay $5 million for Terrell Edmunds.
No, I'm not either. No.
Yeah.
No. I look at Edmunds and say he's a safety. The safety market's always terrible. People always underpay safeties. The longer you let him sit there, I don't think he's going to get more than $5 million. So maybe his value decrease. I think last year he was expecting to make $5 million plus, and that didn't happen. I think that could happen again this year.
Yeah. And like I said, like KZ is not a bad option. Like that's not the worst thing in the world if you've got if that's your replacement, if that's your backup plan. I don't think you need to negotiate him and KZ at the same time. I think you hold on to KZ and let him kind of do his thing while you kind of focus on Edmunds before you pull the trigger there.
Oh, so you're saying you prioritize Edmunds first, which I agree with, and then you try to get KZ afterwards.
Right. You make a plan for KZ after you know what you have or don't have with Edmunds.
Okay, I like that. I do like that because at that point it gives your options a safety valve. And I think I don't want to be this guy, but I might be this guy now. Derek dropped a mock draft today, actually, and his first round pick is for the Steelers is Brian Branch out of Alabama, who's a stud. Like Brian Branch is a stud. If he wasn't a safety, he'd be a top 10 pick with ease, but nobody wants to take a safety in the top 10 because, they're just Derwin James isn't worth it or Minka Fitzpatrick isn't worth it in the eyes of the NFL. I mean, look at if KZ doesn't want to sign and the Steelers want to go get a safety, a star-studded safety in the 17th pick in the draft, I'm all for it. I am all for it. Do I think that's an option right now? Maybe. I think it could be a surprise option if he's there on the board, just like TJ Watt was. People were talking a million other directions than TJ Watt, and then TJ Watt was there at whatever pick it was. I think it was 17. No, it might have been lower. TJ might have been like the 27th pick in the first round. And the Steelers just couldn't pass him up because he's TJ Watt and he was the best player on the board. Brian Branch is there, maybe. But I agree. I think that when you look at KZ, you let him see what his market value is. You don't want to overpay that guy, especially if he's going to be a backup. And at the same time, if Edmonds decides that he wants to go get paid somewhere, and maybe he does go get paid somewhere, maybe you start negotiating with KZ. That's a good question, though, is if Edmonds says, no, I'm not taking this $3 million or $4 million a season, I'm going to go test the market. Do you begin negotiating with KZ or do you wait it out for Edmonds and see what happens?
It's a good question. I don't think you can wait very long.
Yeah.
You can kind of see, you'll be able to see the writing on the wall a little bit and see, okay, Terrell's talking to 8 different teams. There are a million guys, there are a million teams who want him. So we've got to ramp up what we're doing with KZ versus there's not a lot of interest. I think they will also know somewhat ahead of time. They will have a decent read ahead of time on what the market for him is going to be like, at least in terms of interest, if not exact numbers.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be able to make a call on whether Edmonds or KZ need to kind of be whether they need to move on to KZ or whether they can wait it out with Edmonds.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody in the NFL is necessarily going to be jumping ship to say, hey, we got to go sign a safety right now, especially a guy like Terrell Edmonds. Nobody's going to be sitting there like, we'll talk. He's the first guy on our priority list in this offseason. I agree. I think safety is a much more difficult situation for the Steelers than people want to admit or than we've talked about, I guess. But at the same time, I think it's the easiest situation because I think you could replace a safety with ease. And I just think that, there's always going to be somebody sitting there. At the end of free agency, there will always be a starting quality safety still on the market because that's what it is every single season. So if the Steelers don't get their guy and they don't get their backup plan in KZ, somebody will be there and you can just go get somebody and add him, and Minka Fitzpatrick will turn him into a good player. And you could just, use the NFL draft or I don't know, do something. You could find a million, go draft Trenton Simpson at the 32 pick and say, hey, you're actually going to play safety for us. You're terrible inside linebacker, but you're going to play safety. All right. Next guy. Before we go to Larry O, let's go Robert Spillane. Inside linebacker. I don't know what his market's going to be. I have no idea if teams are even going to be interested in this guy, but he played 100% of the snaps the last four games of the season. So the Steelers obviously like him. Do you think he's a priority for them in the offseason to re-sign? Do you think he hits the open market? And if he does hit the open market, do you think the Steelers just let that one coast out?
I actually don't think he will hit the open market. I think the Steelers like him enough to sign him before he can get any other offers. I think he likes it in Pittsburgh too. He's a pretty valuable, I know he's not the best linebacker to ever play in Pittsburgh, but he's a pretty valuable piece. And I think the fact that he played every snap the final 3 weeks of the season or something like that.
4 weeks, yeah.
4 weeks, yeah. I don't know. That seems like a pretty good sign that he's going to stick around. Part of that was just neat. They just weren't going to play Devin Bush as much.
No, Miles Jack had a torn groin, and
right. Some of that was just
Marky Robinson.
Right. Some of that was just opportunity, but look, Spillane's not going to be that expensive. If you're paying more than what?
2.5. His contract this year was 2.5.
Okay, yeah. If you're paying,
I don't think he goes over that.
Right. If he even gets that much, I'll be surprised. But he won't be that expensive. He'll fit. You need a backup linebacker anyway. Go for it. It's you can. This is a luxury that you can afford if you're the Steelers, and it'll.
Yes.
And you need it. So
yeah. I think that I don't know. He does strike me as a guy that will sign before free agency. If I'm the Steelers, do I do that? Not a chance. I let him go into free agency, realize that nobody's offering anything. Say, hey, you want to come back on a 3-year deal, $1.5 million a year? Beautiful. Come be our third inside linebacker. But you're right. Like the Steelers they have a soft spot for this guy and they really like Robert Spillane. I don't get it. Never have gotten it. But if you could play 100% of the snaps and not make glaring, obvious mistakes time and time again, maybe he does have a little bit of something. Maybe Robert Spillane is a guy that you could rely on a number of things. He's a good special teamer. So he's a good asset to have. More than $2 million, $3 million a season. Nah, I don't know about that one. I think you could go find somebody else for $3 million a year, but also, are you going to find somebody that's willing to play 100% of the snaps and play awful coverage defense because you tell him to go do certain things exactly as you want him to do it. And he does, and he goes and does it, and they never work out, but that's what the Steelers ask him to do. So I don't know. I look at that situation and say it's kind of a lose-lose for the Steelers. They get their guy. Cool. I don't think their guy kind of pushes the needle in either way. And they're probably going to take at least a $2 million cap hit because of it for a guy that they could probably replace with a starter for almost the same amount of money, which is difficult.
You really think they could replace him with a starter for $3 million?
Yeah.
For $2 million?
I think you could get a guy like Quincy Williams for like $3 million, who didn't have a lot of playing time in New York, kind of like under exceeded expectations, but still has some upside. Probably more of a proven starter than Spillane. Isn't going to get a lot of money thrown at him. Do I think you go get a David Long? Not a chance. But, I think you could get somebody. Think you could get the next tier up. Like if this is Robert Spillane, if this is Devin Bush, this is Robert Spillane. I think you could get like a here. Okay. I don't know what here is, but I think that's pushing that's a lot closer to the starting line than, where the other two are. Because I just don't think on 31 other teams, I'm not positive that Robert Spillane sees the field more than 15 snaps a game. But in Pittsburgh, it's all the time. And, I just think that changes. I think you could get somebody. I don't know what I have to look at the market, but I do 3, maybe 4, I guess, max. But I think you could find somebody there. All right, last guy, Larry Ogunjobi, defensive end, $8 million last season. That's a tough call to say you're going to sign somebody for $8 million again after he didn't practice for like the last 8 weeks of the season. Still played, had a productive end of the year. Great, but you got to worry about health concerns because not only did he come in dealing with the foot, but now by the end of the season, he was dealing with a back, a toe. I want to say there might have been a knee in there at some point. Didn't have a hugely productive year. Was good for the Pittsburgh Steelers for what they needed him to do as a last-minute call, but wasn't the superstar that, the Chicago Bears were hoping he was going to be when he signed there originally. Do you let him hit the market? How long do you wait if he does hit the market before you sign him? And what's your max value for this guy?
I have really no interest in bringing Larry Ogunjobi back.
None at all.
Not really, no. And I think it's a thanks for the memory. Like you were helpful for us for this year, but we got to look elsewhere. I'd look younger, like draft. If he $8 million is nowhere near. I do not think he is worth $8 million to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I half that maybe. Like if he's willing to sign for $4 million or less, I think $4 million a year. Yes,
$4 million a year or less.
He wasn't. Am I missing something? I do not think he was that great for them this season. I don't think he was worth the $8 million that they were playing.
Wow.
They were paying.
Yeah, you're actually pretty spot on. His market value is 2 years, $6.9 million, $3.5 million a year.
Yeah, like that. Sure, if he wants to come back on that. I don't think he will, though. I think that's the thing. I think he values himself a little bit more, and I think other teams might value him a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
so I don't think there's really a.
I don't remember what his deal was with Chicago, but he was making over $10 million a year. I want to say it was like 11 or 12 million a season. And at the time, he looked like the guy who should be making $12 million a season. He had a phenomenal year in Cincinnati. He helped them get to the Super Bowl. He was the dude. Failed the physical. If it wasn't for the Liz Frank injury at the end of the season, he'd probably be in Chicago making a boatload of money, if not somewhere else, making even more money. But I don't know. I look at him and say, I think you bring him back just because you don't have any other option. You're not going to start DeMarvin Leal. He's too big of a question mark on where he belongs on the defensive line. Isaiah Loudermilk seems like more of a negative project than a positive project at this point. Yeah, you could go NFL draft, but are you going to get a day one starter and feel really good about it? I don't even know anybody in the first round that like you could draft and say, this is definitely a starting defensive end. Maybe, I don't know. But at the same time, maybe you sign him for a 1-year prove it deal for like $5 million and then you at least have a backup plan.
Yeah, that's fine. I had a brilliant point to make about this, but yeah, I mean, $5 million prove it deal, that might work. I think the Steelers have enough like aging veterans who are dealing with health issues, especially along the defensive line that, had some talent and that have some talent, but like have struggled to stay on the field. Like, I'm not interested in one more of those guys.
So you just go full youth movement.
Yeah.
You're saying the defensive tackle, because you need a nose tackle. They don't have a starting nose tackle because Tyson will be gone. Monty Adams, I think, is a good depth piece, but I don't think he's a starter. You don't have a defensive end. You're just going full youth movement, full draft?
Not full draft. I mean, you're gonna have to sign some free agents at some point. But yeah, I'm not. The other thing is, I feel like I'm on a different timeline than everyone else in Pittsburgh. Like, I'm in no rush for this team to be like we are entering this year as with the goal of winning. Like, we're not putting all our eggs in this one basket for this year. Like, take it slow.
That's how the Steelers think, though. Art Rooney is not a we're gonna wait it out type of guy. And even so, I do you want to like rush a second round pick into a starting role this season? Do you look at that and just say, or like, is it a guy like Larry O able to come in here and kind of just be the starter and you don't have to worry about anything while guys like DeMarvin Leal and another rookie and maybe two more rookies come in here and just kind of like get their feet wet?
Well, but I do worry about Larry Ogunjobi being able to start every game, like all 17 games this year.
No, I agree. I think that when it comes to injuries, that is something that you need to address. Do you sign somebody else? Is that like, do you go after another veteran?
Yeah, not knowing exactly what the market looks like. Yeah, you would have to.
Let's look up some defensive ends here.
Here we go. Yeah.
So we got Robert Quinn, 33 years old. No,
yeah.
Brandon Graham, you're not going to get Brandon Graham. Yannick Ngakoue, not bad. Jadeveon Clowney, that'll never happen.
Yeah.
Matthew Ioannidis, possibly, but I don't think that'll happen either. Ashawn Robinson's out there, and then you're kind of fall into the same category that everybody else is. Like a Jordan Phillips, maybe you could go out and get, but I don't know if he fits. Justin Houston, who's 35 years old. You could try to make a splash and hope that a guy like Marcus Davenport maybe works out, or Carlos Dunlap at 34 years old works out. But there's just not, it's not a very good market now that I look at it. Maybe Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas might be an option. It's not a bad name. Only 27 years old. Not terrible. Not terrible.
And there's some talent to work with there. But yeah. I guess this is more of a lose-lose situation than I might have realized. But
it's a rough defensive end like free agency class. Now that I'm looking at it, there's literally nobody out here. Jason Pierre-Paul. They're all either super old or the last like wave of big name defensive linemen that just didn't work out, who are at like the tail end of their rookie deals. That's who's really out there. I don't know. So just to stay on Larry O, then, are you comfortable waiting out the market for defensive end until maybe even after the NFL draft?
No, because I feel like my instincts say that because this free agent defensive line class is not particularly deep.
Yeah.
Someone's going to jump. And like, if you want to bring Larry O back, bring him back now. Like, don't wait for someone else to hand him a desperation offer and like drive up the price. Don't. That would be my thinking. If that's what they want to do, if they want to bring him back, I would not jump the guy. I would go earlier for it. I would go for it earlier rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when I'm looking at the market, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cam Sutton and Larry Ogunjobi are getting contracts like now. Sign them. Don't let them hit the market. Just give them easy offers where you're probably going to save some money in the long run and secure those positions. Then let Edmonds and KZ and Robert Spillane walk, even though I don't know if they will let Robert Spillane walk, but you let them hit the open market, realize that they don't have a market value, bring them in on cheaper deals, because I think you actually save money doing that, whereas it's the reverse for those guys. Keep your veteran core together, build in the draft. Because I think people are crazy who are out here going, you need a left tackle in the first round of the offensive or of the NFL draft. You need a wide receiver in the first round of the NFL draft. No, you need a cornerback and you need a defensive lineman, and then you need a second defensive lineman that's bigger than the first defensive lineman. And then maybe you go get a tackle, and then maybe you go get a wide receiver. Probably go get a safety at some point. But I just think that if you take more than one offensive guy in the first 5 picks of the draft, you are wild if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You are not prioritizing this team correctly whatsoever. But, Roshan Johnson at 80, still the move. Still the move. And with that, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to find us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Find all of mine and Steven's work at allsteelers.com, and go check out Derek's mock draft at allsteelers.com as well. We will be back on Wednesday. Peace.